Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Max Tac Motorsports. So today we're back in our GTI, and today I'm going to be installing the air-fuel ratio gauge. So again, this is an awesome gauge to have, not only just as your daily driver, but especially for a track day car and for tuning purposes. Most of you guys will know that it measures your air-fuel ratio, which I know sounds pretty cliche and bland, but that's exactly what it does. And again, it's key for, if you're on the track and you're hammering it down a straightaway and you start leaning out, you don't want to detonate your motor, or if you're running pretty rich, it just kind of gives you a better perspective of what's going on with your engine and how it's running in really any sort of circumstance. So yeah, let's get to it. Anyways, you're going to want to go out and obviously get yourself a gauge. So I have myself one of these guys. So this is an AEM. This is their basic classic air fuel gauge here. Again, when you buy this too, there's like different types you can get, but this one does come in like has like a white face you can get. I think it has like a silverish kind of cover here, so you can kind of change it up the way you want it to look. But me personally, I think the black looks awesome, especially at nighttime when these things are just glowing away. It looks so good. But taking a look at the gauge itself, so at the back you got your pins. You got a 6-pin and a 4-pin and 2 different harnesses. And if you follow your harness, you're gonna come out with 2 different ends here. So the first one, this is your, there you go. So this is your pretty much your wiring. So the blue and the white wire, I don't know exactly what they do. I know if you read the instructions, it tells you. I think one is for like an input. So if you do hook up to a laptop, you can kind of like monitor stuff. I think that's what it does. The other one, I'm not fully sure. But realistically, I know these 2 are optional, so I do have them capped off. But the main ones we're going to be focusing on is obviously the black and the red. So your black is going to be your ground, and then your red one here is going to be your power. Now this is going to go to, on this MK4, you guys remember that's 75X, which is switch ignition power. So that's exactly where this gauge is going to go to. When you do that, you're going to need a 10 amp fuse. So this gauge was actually on the Camaro, and this is the out of fuse circuit that I had on that. But we're going to be taking this off. And then I picked up, well, I shouldn't say I picked up, but I found one of these guys kicking around. So this is just a little fuse, inline fuse. So I'm just gonna take this little cover off, put the 10 amp fuse in there, and then this ring terminal is going to go onto that 75X, and then we're just gonna do our connections with the 2 wires here. So yeah, so that's the wiring as far as the gauge goes. After that, the harness continues on, or the second harness continues on, brings you to your sensor. So this is your O2 sensor, which is right here. Again, this came from AEM, so this is a AEM specific sensor, I believe. And then you can kind of see the connection point here. And then yeah, then obviously it reads up to your gauge. But anyway, so this, like I said, was on the Camaro. It doesn't look too like fouled up. I might clean just a little bit. I don't know the rule of thumb when it comes with like, can you reuse these for a different application? I have no idea, if I'm honest, but I'm going to find out. If I do find that the readings are way off, and like I should have a rough idea if my motor's running really rich or leaned right out, I'll have to probably get another one of these. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And then moving on to our second thing here, this is our pod. So obviously you're going to want some sort of mounting as far as either a gauge pod, or if you want to make your own little kind of bracket thing. But yeah, I picked this baby up here. I was able to get this through Das Parts, but if you guys are not in the Toronto area and you're in the States or whatever, you guys can get this from ECS Tuning. But this is a CJM Industries defrost gauge pod. So a little different. Instead of the traditional kind of A-pillar here, I went with, you can kind of see that little defroster hole there on top of the dash. That's exactly where this pod's going to go. So the boys clearly know how us Canadians rock up here. My lord, baby, look at that. Good old airhead. I will be cranking that real soon, no doubt. And then make sure you guys can see everything. We got our, this is our pod. So I will be showing that, obviously. And then this looks like the base. And let's see if we get anything else. Do we have any stickers? Oh, you better believe we do. Stickers. So that'll be going on the toolbox. And then they actually include, there you go, so some sort of instructions on what to do. So let me just take off this bubble wrap here and we'll take a look at the pod itself. All right, so looking at our pod now, yeah, the construction of it is actually pretty sweet, man. I kind of dig this, really. But so yeah, this is obviously the head of it. You can kind of see these two little screws, and you kind of see that little hole. That is for our base. So we're gonna pop this guy out right there, and then place it with this. So this should just pop right in, and then you can see the corresponding holes, and the big hole. That's gonna be for these guys. But yeah, guys, I'm pretty excited about it. I was going to kind of take a look at everything on how I'm going to kind of run my wires, and then I will bring you guys in and we'll go from there. So there's a bit of a preview of what this bad boy is going to look like. I forgot to mention, guys, this pod is actually for like, so this is a 52 millimeter gauge pod, which is pretty common from what I've heard. And yeah, look at that. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at there. Again, too, with CJM Industries here, they provide this guy right here. So this is like a 3M tape kind of buffer, which will help obviously the gauge from moving around in there. If not, guys, I'm sure you can like take like a couple elastic bands or something and just kind of really wrap around the gauge, or you might be able to put like some electrical tape on just so it sits in there nice and tight. But yeah, I think that looks pretty pretty slick if you ask me. But moving on, so what we're going to be doing again is we're going to be taking off this guy right here. So the defroster gauge, we're going to be popping that off. You can use a screwdriver. You might be able to actually like just maneuver around and have it pop off. But just be careful, guys, because it is pretty brittle. You don't want to snap that, especially if you're going to reuse it in the long run. But one thing that is pretty cool about the gauge is this guy right here. Is that it actually provides, you can kind of see some like little kind of lines here for any sort of defrosting that you may be doing while the gauge is actually installed. All right, guys, so you can see, just pop that off. Now I kind of put in this like lip here because these ones in the middle, they're longer than all the other ones and they tend to flex really hard. But again, if you kind of like put your screwdriver kind of in up here and kind of like do a little bit of a twist and pop, it comes right out. So that thing is done. And then what I did too was I went ahead and took off the side panel. That way I can have a good kind of view of what I'm actually doing behind here. The only thing that's kind of I shouldn't say a bummer, but kind of a nuisance is that obviously there's ducting here. So if you put your finger in, it's just a duct that runs wherever through the firewall, or not through the firewall, but to your blow motor and whatnot, right? So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to drill a hole. So I'm just gonna take my step bit, drill a little hole. That way the wires can be fed up through there. And then with this panel gone now, I'll be able to actually like maneuver my stuff around, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, I'm just gonna work on getting that hole done. And then from there, we're gonna kind of go underneath the car, show you guys where you're gonna mount your sensor, and then find a route that we can do all our wires on. So first and foremost, when drilling into anything that you can't see, just make sure there's no wiring or anything. So I'm gonna put my hand up here, everything's clear, good to go. But yeah, so I just used myself just a little bit here, and then kind of bored the hole open. And then now, you know, if I put my fingers up through here, I'll be able to feel where that hole is now. Again, I got to make sure that it's wide enough to fit the 6-pin and the 4-pin. Now, obviously you don't have to do them both at the same time. It's gonna make that a lot wider, but as long as it fits at least the 6-pin, then you should be good to go. So yeah, just be careful, guys, when you're drifting, when you're drilling, and then make sure that you don't have the drill on an angle that you're gonna rip your dash apart. Okay, guys, so now we're underneath the car here. So as you can see, there's our downpipe, our Miltech downpipe that we put in. And then if you guys remember that when I got the exhaust done by Top Gear in Cambridge, the O2 sensor, this thing had 2 of them Like this downpipe had 2 O2 bungs. So I had one, which is, where are you? Oh, perfect, there you are. So this is your primary O2 sensor. So because of the fact that this car is running on it's still stock ECU, there's not like a standalone system on it. This O2 sensor, the primary one, is like mandatory. Well, I shouldn't say mandatory, but it's like very, very, very important into having your car run properly. Now, if you were to run like a standalone ECU that you can probably run just the wideband and have it tuned, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, this guy right here, very important. And then our secondary one, so this guy was way back there when we got the downpipe, if you guys remember the video. And then what Top Gear did was we kind of cut the pipe and kind of put in this section here, and then I had them move the new bung to a different location. That way it's closer to the engine. So I think it's like 21 inches is like kind of the general area where you want your wideband to be, roughly. I could be wrong on that, just make sure you guys research it, but a relatively close location to the engine is kind of where you want your O2 to be. That way you get the most proper reading that you can get, if that makes any sense to you guys. But yeah, so what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna take this plug out, and then we got our, where are you? Oh gosh, I'm on it. There we go. And we got our little sensor, so I'm gonna put that into there, and then I'm gonna have to find a route to run up into the firewall, and then at the firewall I'm gonna try to go through the same section where some of my wiring's already gone in for the boost gauge and stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna try to do that, and then once we're in the car, it should be relatively easier to get this all done. It's just trying to get the wiring from the plug and actually into the car. Again, guys, this is a fairly easy thing to do. As far as installing, you just have to take your time and make sure you have everything kind of mapped out. All right, so I've got a 15/16 wrench here. This is the size for this bad boy. So I've already kind of loosened it a bit. It should actually come out by hand now. Oh, I wish I had a hoist. These custom jack stands though, bro, these things are unreal. Oh, okay, so there you go. So there's inside the O2 bung right there. And very simple, guys. We're gonna be just threading this in. I'm gonna disconnect it here. That way this whole line doesn't get kind of all wrapped up. Very similar to when we did this stuff here. You can see this thing's in here now, and we have it all connected. So what I'm gonna do now, just because it's kind of close to the exhaust and the turbo, which are pretty much the hottest part of this motor, I'm just gonna wrap this stuff again. And this stuff from DEI, I love this stuff, man. It's obviously good for a lot of heat, and it's just so much easier to use compared to like that plastic crappy wire loom that I did with a couple of other projects I've done. But yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of wrap it up, zip tie them together, and then I think what we're gonna do is kind of go over this, what's it called here, the subframe, which I need to get a new one because this thing, it looks hideous. But anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna run it up, and then kind of go up through there. See that nice beam of light coming down? I'm gonna kind of go up through there, and then hopefully I should be able to fit through the firewall. Okay guys, so you can see I kind of have this kind of loose fit right now, and then what I have it going, or where I have it going, is kind of up and around, and then the big connections are, you can kind of see them right there. So I have it kind of like tucked in behind this heat shield, that way to protect it a little bit more. And then I have it zip tied up to one of the shifter cables that comes out of the firewall. And then right now everything's kind of hanging down here. You can kind of see it all, some of it all bunched in where all that light is. But yeah, that's what it looks like so far. And then about I'd say like a quarter of the length of the actual wire is all covered over in this DEI thermal stuff. Oh yeah, it's not hard to do. It's just nice if you have a hoist and you don't have rusty subframes dripping in your eye. But at least that way you guys can kind of see the whole method on which hopefully I think this should be safe enough, being behind this heat shield and zip tied to those shifter cables. So what I'm gonna do now is just gonna go up top and just kind of get the rest of it out, and then I'm gonna try to do a little bit more zip tying just to kind of keep it out of harm's way. Remember guys, you have axles over here in the front, you have all the heat, you have I mean the steering linkage, everything in here. So you just want to get this wire out of the way where it's not going to get caught or it's gonna overheat and melt. Get the line all the way up here now, and then I actually went ahead and took off the heat shield. There's the cone filter, and then took off this little fuse box thing, and then went inside the car and I put myself a screwdriver. You can't really see it, but oh yeah, you can kind of see the tip of it there. Again, so that's the same kind of grommet hole that's stock with the body, so like that's already there. You don't have to drill anything or go anything crazy with the firewall. I didn't really want to go through the one that I put the boost gauge wiring in, just because I want that to kind of be its own thing. But as far as this one, that one is stock. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of fish up the wiring from the O2 and kind of just make sure it's all taken care of and out of the way, and then we'll have that back inside the car. And then from there, again, it's just a matter of getting all the wires up to the gauge and doing our wiring, and then yeah, we should be good to go. We were just getting ready to fish this through. Yeah, so that's the antenna from the MK4. You know, I mean, I usually use a screwdriver, but it's such a pain in the ass to try to get the actual wiring taped up to it. So I just found yeah, just found this antenna laying around, just because I'm going to be putting a shorty onto this one. But yeah, there you go guys. So we're about to fish this through. It is going to be tight, and it's kind of making me a little worried, because when I do the underglow kit as well, which that'll be a whole nother video, it's going to be really tight going through that little hole. So at that point I might have to go another route and actually put in a different hole through a firewall, which I'll have to get grommets and stuff. But yeah, as far as this goes, the antenna boys and girls from the MK4, great underrated tool for fishing. All right, so there we go. Oh my gosh, that was a bit of a pain, I'm not gonna lie. But I would say that that's probably the hardest part of doing this, is just running your line from your sensor to your actual gauge. Oh man, I'm just happy that didn't break. So you guys can see it right there, goes up to the firewall. And what you're looking at right now, like this is like, there's still like another like 3 feet of this stuff to go. So you'll have more than enough line to really get this done. But anyways, yeah, I'm going to send this baby up through here and then up into our little defroster hole that we had, and I'm just gonna give myself like, I don't know, maybe like a foot of wires to stick out of the hole. That way, like, you know, I mean, I can maneuver everything around when I put the gauge on. And then once that's through, then I'm gonna work on putting the power line in. So this guy right here, which should be a lot easier, just because that this guy only has to go from up there and literally to the 75X on the MK4, and then the ground right beside it. Very basic stuff. All right, there you go guys. So here's our power lines. Again, we're going to be putting in inline 10 amp fuse for the red one, and then the black one just going to go to ground. And then these two, the blue and white one, we're just going to cap them off. We don't need them in this application. And then you can see here, this is the defroster defroster vent for now. This is the new one, and it was really tight. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little worried that the 6-pin wasn't going to fit through it when I started doing it all, but it fit perfectly. Like, if you have it the right way, it should go in no problem. And then I just did the 4-pin one right there. So yeah, looks really good guys so far. I'm gonna try and get this neck portion of it, I guess you can say, this guy right here, I'm gonna feed these through and then put this on, and then I'm gonna get the gauge all set up. And then once the gauge is on, then I'm going to like bring all my slack down, kind of tie it up out of the way. That way it's kind of like organized and away from all the other especially all the power lines and wires that are involved with the actual stock what's called wiring harness, sorry. So yeah, let's get this thing going on, get the gauge in there. Don't forget, guys, you can use like a little bit of tape or elastic bands if you find that the gauge is kind of like spinning around. If not, then you can use this little 3M strip right here too, just so you guys can kind of see. So again, this is the neck portion right here, and if you look, like, it's got to be perfect and it will fit. Oh yes sir, there she goes. And then, guys, you can see, so there's the two little screws. So if I kind of like, I know this is hard with the camera, but if there's one lined up, just kind of maneuver it around. Oh, there we go, right there. So you guys can see that right there. Perfect. Again, those are the two little, they're just little Phillips screws. I'm digging how they actually put like brass fittings in there with actual threads in them. Like, that's pretty sweet. Like I said, guys, the construction of it's actually not that bad, and for the price, it's not that bad at all. So now we put our little 3M kind of mounting tape in there, which is pretty self-explanatory. I'm pretty sure that's the way it's supposed to go. Yeah, then after that, guys, again, this is pretty easy too. You have your 6-pin and your 4-pin at the back, and it can only go on the gauge one way. There's only one way that it works, so you can't really mess this one up. And there you guys go. Look at that. Man, that looks so good. I'm so happy I stayed with the black kind of look on it. It would have been nice if, like, sorry, I got that camera going on here, if the casing of this was like in a gloss black, but then again, it kind of looks a little tacky. So I don't mind the actual like two-tone of it, but yeah, everything's in there nice and easy. And that little 3M tape, like, that thing's solid now. So you can kind of get an idea for how it's gonna look. Hopefully everything lines up perfectly in there. Well, it's only one way to find out. If I have to like rotate it, then I might have to pop it off and then kind of flip around with the screws here. But yeah, guys, so not bad at all right now. I'm just gonna kind of like run all my wires down further, zip tie them up and whatnot, and then I'm gonna start doing all our connections. Like, guys, look at that, man. Oh my gosh, that looks so clean. Like, I know A-pillars look pretty cool, but like a lot of people have A-pillar gauges. Like, I know a lot of people have these ones, but man, like, this is one of the cleanest mods I've ever done to a car. And it just looks so good. It looks stock. Like, it looks like it fits right in there. I absolutely love this, man. Okay, guys, so again, when you're doing this, remember, you're gonna have to put a 10 amp fuse in line to the switch power. So like I said earlier, we're going to be going to the 75X that's on the MK4 here. Always, I shouldn't have to say it every time, but just make sure your battery is off. Again, this car hasn't had its battery connected in weeks, so it's just kind of a norm for me. But anyways, yeah, so the 10 amp fuse right here is what we're going to be tossing on, and then we're going to be using this ring terminal right here. I might actually cut all this just to kind of keep it a little bit cleaner, and then use these heat shrink guys right here. So I'm going to be doing that, and then just zip tying this stuff out of the way like I mentioned, and hopefully everything should be okay today. I'm not going to go for like a drive today, just to like, you know, I mean, you have to keep in mind, like, when this thing's like under boost and when it's under load while driving, then your air fuel ratio gauges are going to be a lot different than just sitting on jack stands idling, right? But I will either start it up or at least turn the battery on so you guys can kind of see it work, and then for my own peace of mind, I can see it work. So there you go. So there's our connections that are done. You can see that we got our red wire from the gauge going into our inline 10 amp fuse, and then our black wire from the gauge going into just this is just a ring terminal here, and then we have our two wires that we don't need to use from the gauge, are just kind of wrapped around, capped off, and out of sight, out of mind. So now we're just going to go up here again, and again for the MK4 guys, you're going 75X, and then the ground right beside it. Okay, now we have all the wiring all taken care of. Everything's all tucked up in here, just underneath this. It was a huge pain putting everything on that 75X. Just kind of like contorting myself to get in here, but I don't know, maybe next year or throughout the winter I'll make like my own fuse block or something like that. Even what's it called too, like, I gotta do the underglow kit on this thing still, and it's gonna be pretty hard to get everything through the firewall and find spots and studs, and I don't want to burn anything down. But yeah, anyway, so that's all tucked away. Now I'm gonna go back over there, hook the battery up. I'm also gonna put on my MAF sensor, my intake, all that stuff has to go back on. Should take me about 5 minutes, and hope you work. I did actually change my ground location, so instead of going to the one over there, you guys can't even see that, but there's one over there that I've been going to lately. I went over here, which is kind of on the same block, so we'll see how that works. So moment of truth here. Yeah, everything's all hooked back up. We got everything tightened down. This car is so dirty right now. There's so much pollen and dust in the air from you know, I mean, dandelions and all that stuff growing around the area, and it is just caked in here. But without getting too off topic, as I tend to do, let's see if this thing works. So generally, I think what happens is that if I remember correctly, once the battery is engaged, or once I do like turn the accessories on, this gauge should do what most gauges do. They'll go all the way to whatever they max out at, and then they'll come back to 0, and then whatever, right? And then when I start the car, it should start measuring up whatever the air fuel ratio is. Now I'm not too certain on how like normal GTIs as far as like idling and all that stuff go, what their favorite number is, but I would assume it's going to be between 12 and 14, which would be ideal, given that I think the perfect ratio is like 14:1 or something like that. So we'll see how it goes. Let's fire it all up and make sure we're in neutral here. So you can see already, I know with the LEDs it might be pretty hard. It's probably doing some seizuring stuff to you guys. At least that's what it's doing on my camera here. But so you can see then, let's see if I can restart it actually. So this is with the car off. So right there. Yeah, seems a normal. Yeah, 14.1. You can see it's all dropping down. Oh, we'll see what that does. I'm not sure what that does. That might be a ground gone bad, but we'll see. Start up. So yeah, everything looks okay there right now. So 13, 13.2, 13.1. Again, this is a cold start, so it's probably gonna be a little bit more rich as far as dumping a little bit more fuel. But yeah, guys, look at that, eh? You can see there it just kind of dropped down. It is a hot day today, so I don't think the cold start's gonna last that long. Oh, it looks sweet. And again, too, guys, you know, I mean, to really test this thing out, like, you got to put it under load, you got to go for a drive. I'm not going to be doing that until my my springs come in, and yeah, I have no idea when that's going to be. It's taking forever to get everything in, but unfortunately that's the world we live in. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I really appreciate you guys watching another video. Hopefully this helped you guys out. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can DM me on YouTube. You can also, again, you can subscribe, you can comment. Please like the video. It really does help. I'm hoping in the future to do a giveaway when the world allows it. But yeah, if not, you can always follow us on Instagram at Max Attack Motorsports. And you know, I mean, we're just coming up to the summer here, so if you got your summer ride out, you got like a banging exhaust you got going on, or some sick rims or something, and you want to be featured, by all means, guys, don't be afraid to DM us. So yeah, thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. Ciao.